forgot to hit the start button, so give me just a moment here.
I forgot to ask too, did you just want to do like audio? Do you want like camera? What's the idea?
Well, I was gonna do camera, but like I said, everything is acting wonky. So on the streaming computer that I use, it's not letting the video run through Stream Elements. So I was just gonna do audio so that you could just be comfortable, be relaxed, and not have to worry about people wondering what are you doing, like you know what I mean. So you can just be more comfortable.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're in your pajamas, you just want to sip coffee, whatever you want to do, I just want you to be comfortable.
Sweet. Okay. I am in a giant hoodie, so I'm definitely hitting that benchmark.
Well, there you go. With the time difference, so how long after you got off were you home? Was it like, did you have some time to relax?
An hour or so. Also, like getting off from work.
What is up, guys? It's your man, Mr. Beats. I hope you're doing well. Welcome. I'm just getting things set up here. Alright, make sure that's going. Dun. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Don't do this to be delayed. Yeah, I see it. I'm getting it updated now. What's up, Jack? Welcome. I'm getting situated now. I just realized I messed that up. So bear with me, mass. With yes. Barkwell of Bioware. Bro, like I am so off today, so I apologize, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping in. Bear with me one moment here while I get this fixed, done, updated, and away we go. All right, so we're all set. All right, so welcome. Hope you're having a great evening. We're getting set up here. I have Katrina Barkwell with me from Bioware. She's going to be hanging out. We're going to get to know her a little bit better. So there is no video this evening because the video is acting up. So we have her on audio. So hope you enjoy. Thank you for being around. And I'm going to bring her in. All right, thank you so much for your patience and hanging out with us. You're live. They can hear you now. So.
Yo, hello.
Introduce yourself. I'll let you introduce yourself because there's not a lot about you on the internet. I'm gonna have you know I googled you to act like I knew what I was doing, and there's not a lot about you. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So, hello. My name is Kat Barkwell. I work as a programmer at Bioware. I've been with Bioware about 3-ish years now. I started as an intern and then got hired full time. Currently, I'm an RPG programmer and I'm working on the newest Dragon Age.
Sweet,
Yeah.
sweet. Okay, so that you know, it's funny that you mentioned that because as I was reading the your bio and watching the videos that you've been in, it says RPG programmer. So when I tried to figure out what exactly that does, it's very vague. So if you wouldn't mind,
Right. Yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense. I can explain that more.
if you wouldn't mind, what exactly is an RPG programmer?
Certainly. Okay, so like it's a very specific title because it is like very game specific. So role playing game programmer usually means within most companies like you're coding up like the systems for like talent trees and abilities and level up and XP. So that's like the specific systems that I own and work on. Um, and like with being a programmer in like a Bioware's in a weird spot where we're a triple A studio, but we kind of like we're a triple A studio, but we have the size of like a mid-sized studio. We maybe have like 300 people around like the time we're shipping a game. So there's a lot of like with it, the team being smaller and everything. There's a lot of back and forth with my team. Probably has like 2 RPG designers on it who are kind of like doing all the like balancing, tweaking, and stuff like that. So that's kind of what my role is, and I realize now that that's very niche to say.
But it's also cool because when someone asks you, you can give them specifics. Where other people, they're probably like all over the place in what they could, you know, necessarily encompass. But I was just finding it
Totally.
interesting
Yeah.
that it said RPG program. So I was wondering if like what end of that scale that meant that you would be on. That's good to know. So like okay, so I'm currently playing Mass Effect. You can't see it, but I'm playing Mass Effect Andromeda. So when you're talking to someone, so like in the dialogue wheel, that wouldn't be you, but like when you're going in and picking your specialties, that's kind of what you're doing, right?
Yeah, that would be more my bread and butter. Yeah.
Okay.
We have for our narrative team, we have specific narrative programmers, and the stuff they kind of work on is more. Oh, I can think of some friends that might get mad at me if I butcher this. I will try to give the best description of what they do. They kind of do more tools work because when you're a narrative designer, like working with the choice wheel and stuff like that, you're trying to make a tool for the writers to have the easiest time kind of doing that branching narrative. And like looking at like all the different pieces that they could go down or different threads that would loop back to a certain point. So that's what narrative does. And then I know UI has like a fairly heavy hand in trying to design like the choice wheel and stuff like that too. It's really common for programmers to typically start in UI for games program just because you can see exactly what you're doing at any given time. I myself started in UI and then specialized into RPG, and then I guess I really like RPG, but we'll see. A lot of the time, your position as a programmer is like, what does the company desperately need right now? And then you kind of go into that. But yeah.
That's interesting. My wife started out as a runner at a law firm, and she ended up being like a little bit of everything. So they ended up giving her a position that didn't even have a title. So when that people would ask her what she did, she's like, it just depends on what day of the week it is. So I can understand that from a personal experience how jobs can put you in those situations where just depending on where the flow's going, it might change a little bit of what your title could be. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Also,
so
sorry, my cat was screaming in the background for that. She's settled now, but I swear it wasn't me making weird cat noises during this.
hey, with the name Cat, I wasn't gonna judge. I was just gonna let it
Right?
be. So
You don't you don't know. It could be. Yeah.
all right, well, that's interesting because you don't get a lot of these questions. You don't see answers to because no one ever asks like the data end of it. They don't really ask the back end. I want to know these questions because it feels like whenever you hear about developers, you only tend to hear about either the people that are like the lead or B, the people that work in QA that get blamed for everything. So you don't get to
Mm,
hear a lot of the in between of like the different steps. So that's good to know.
totally. Yeah.
All right, so I'm sure you've been working all day, and we've asked you a question in regards to your work side of it, though. But for you personally, when did you start gaming?
Like just like playing
Yeah,
games.
just like your interest in gaming in general. Like, some people remember the first time they picked up like a controller, or the first time they saw someone else playing. Like, what for you drew you to games?
Ooh, okay, okay. I feel you. I feel you. For me, it's been like a lifelong love. And like I had an older brother growing up, who was quite a bit older than me, and he really liked video games. So it kind of felt like inevitable that that would be an interest I would pick up. And I think for like some women it can feel daunting, but at least in like my house, like my brother never gave me like shit about it or anything, so it was easy to hop onto that. And like the first game I like distinctly remember like being obsessed with was probably like Zelda Ocarina of Time for like the N64. And I remember playing it before I could read, and so my brother would sit beside me and like read the dialogue for me so I could go through it. Um, that's probably one of my fondest memories too of going through that. And it's a game that I probably replay every couple of years or so. I don't know. There's something so magical about it for me. But ever since then, it's been like my number one hobby.
Nice.
Yeah, I love games.
Nice. Nice. Well, I figure, get to know you a little bit better, get to know a little bit more about the development side. So that's actually kind of cool because, like, the thing that made me ask that is my 6-year-old is an avid video gamer. Like, it's interesting to think, that I've had some influence on that, and not even intentionally. So, like, he does other things. So he
Totally.
likes reading and everything else, but, like, he sees my passion for it, so it's definitely driven his passion. Like, he killed, man, I swear I should probably record him because he plays Fortnite and he destroys people. And I'm like, at 6, I'm pretty sure they would quit if they knew this 6-year-old was destroying them. So he makes me seem
That would
like,
definitely knock my confidence I'd be impressed, but also like, damn.
oh, that's what he does to me. So I don't build. I'm not good with the building. I don't pretend. So I stand next to him. He builds up and protects me, and I shoot. So we do good because we know each other's strengths and weaknesses. But it's just funny because I'm sure later on in life, if he gets asked that question, he's probably gonna remember like Fortnite, and like my older son is the one that got him introduced to Fortnite. So
Mhm.
anytime he brings it up, he talks about him. So it's cool to see the family connection there for you too. So I feel like that's a universal thing with gamers though. Like somebody in your
Totally,
life
yeah.
introduced you to it in a way that you could see their passion and it drove you towards it. So that's cool. So you said your
Mhm.
older brother is older, like, and not to be too specific, but like by the time he was out of high school, were you like in middle school, like that type older, or
Oh yeah, he's
okay?
9 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
So
So are you the baby of the
yeah,
family?
yeah, I was
Okay.
I was the baby and like clearly unexpected to my parents, but they were happy about it. I know my mom always wanted to have a girl, so she was pretty hyped when I came along. But she used to joke all the time. She was like, oh, "I wanted a little girl, and I just got another little boy because I was such a tomboy growing up." Um, but yeah, so pretty big age difference between me and my brother, and he has a son now too that is also similarly like you said, like very into games and kind of can see um, my brother's passion for that. But it's been so nice with the pandemic because I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I work in Edmonton, Alberta. But being able to like connect over Steam and play games together it's like curbed a lot of the homesickness for me because I can still talk with my nephew and have fun with him and get into that. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's actually really cool. I was gonna ask, how do you manage like the pandemic up there? How you guys have handled it's different than here, so we won't get into that because I don't want no one sending me any hate mail. But
Yeah, no, totally understood.
it's just interesting to see that the way people have adjusted to it is things like that, like being able to connect over like Twitch, over like Zoom, over Discord. Like
Mhm.
it's just crazy that I used to joke about how I felt more disconnected because of social media and everything, but because of the pandemic, it's actually allowed me to stay connected to more people than I have been, in the past, where I'd make a point to,
Absolutely. Yep.
go out of my way to text them. It's not the same no more. So that it's interesting to hear how that, not only affects us here, but how it affects y'all and how y'all deal with it.
Mhm.
I have a friend that streams Fallout a lot, and she has a thing for your guys' prime minister, so I see him all the time, so it's hilarious. I feel like that's the only reason she'd move to Canada, so. All right, so you said you've been there about 3 years, and you said you started as an intern. Was that your entryway into gaming?
Yes. So, like I said before, like I had always loved video games, and I really wanted to work in video games too. But that was kind of like it's a tough thing to know what path to take when you're doing that. So I remember when I was like, okay, I'm gonna seriously do this. I was like probably like around 16 or something. I googled like, okay, like best degree to get into video games, and computer science came up, and I already liked programming, so I was like, all right, let's do that then. Got my degree in computer science. It was from my local University of Manitoba, and they had a really good like co-op program there, intern program that kind of set you up with different jobs within the city, but also outside the city, including with EA. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to apply through that, and that's going to be like how I do it. And when I was like, for my program, you do like 3 intern terms. And I had done one, and I was like, okay, I'm going to apply out of town. And I interviewed with EA, and that alone was very exciting for me to like, oh my God, I'm actually like talking to a game studio. They're considering me for this. But the first time they passed on me, they're like, you need a little more experience. I was like, okay. Got a job that worked in Unity a bit, so I'd have like more. I had it as a hobby, as something I was building, like little 2D games and stuff like that. But having, like a full-time gig that was going to pay me to work in that engine gave me the experience EA kind of needed. So when I interviewed with them again, they didn't have a problem like passing me along to the other Canadian studios, one of which was Bioware, and then I did that interview, and that went well. And then I got hired as an intern, and so I think that was for 8 months or so, and that was when I was doing UI programming. And it's basically like an 8-month interview, which is kind of stressful, but also like really fun. Like it was so surreal to be like, man, they're like paying me to like play games and like work on games, and that was always exciting the whole time. And then just like was like, hey, I am really interested in this, and the timing lined up that they were looking to like hire programmers, so the business case could be made like, hey, like this would be a good add to the company. And then at the end of my term, I had a contract to go back. So then I finished up. I had 1 semester left of my degree. I did that, and then I've been working at Bioware since.
Nice.
So that's how I got in, at least.
That's really
it's
cool.
Tough for different disciplines.
Well, I'm sure. That's why I said it's interesting that some people go other routes and end up there, and then others set their sights on that and actually get in. That's the stories I like to hear, because you see all the ads like become a computer programmer, get into games, but I've hardly met maybe 9-10 people who've gone that route and are where you are because of that, because it's like an interview process, because of all the other stuff. So
so many things have to go right, and like I try to tell people all the time too, like try not to get discouraged if you don't hear back the first time. Like if I had my first interview with EA and then just like given up after that, like I wouldn't be here now, and I wouldn't be at Bioware again. I feel so lucky that I ended up at Bioware. But keep on like being persistent about it, because sometimes it has nothing to do with you as an individual. It's just like the luck wasn't there, the timing wasn't right, especially like games like release on like cycles too, right? So like there's a studio that's great, but they happen to be in pre-prod, like your chances of getting hired are lower, which just kind of sucks.
That's something else I hadn't heard. So like I said, I'm learning some things tonight that I might be able to pass on others. That's cool. Jack actually has a question. Jack has a question from stream. He says, not to give away any spoilers or anything, but while you're working on Dragon Age 4, do any other games give you inspiration for the area in which you work?
For the area in which I work? So for RPG, like we jokingly say at work all the time we're doing competitive analysis, which is just we get to play other video games really like. But I wouldn't say anything like directly like inspires it, especially because like something that's really nice about working on Dragon Age is it's such a like defined IP. We know like what we want to do with it, with it and like what that kind of feels like. But I know, oh God, wait, my computer's going to sleep mode. Okay, I'm still good. But I know pretty much any big budget RPG that comes out, like the whole team is gonna play and enjoy. Like I know I've been playing a butt ton of Hades, and I've loved that a lot. I know other people have looked at kind of Assassin's Creed with like them adding new RPG elements to the games, which is pretty interesting. I think the first one they kind of tested that out with was Origins, if I recall correctly. But looking at how like another AAA studio kind of implements that and what does their UI look like and how they manage that has been something. I know there's lots of people on the team that like I don't know, so many people on our team like love Diablo and stuff like that too, and looking at gear and all of that too.
Right.
But really, like, again, it's hard to say. Like everything kind of influences the whole industry's literacy for what, like, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? The whole industry informs like what that mechanic looks like and how that's going to look in the future too. So it's one thing to be like, this is what's like inspiring us now, but you're not just trying to design for a game that's going to release now, right? You're trying to design for a game that's going to release like in the future. And before it was like we were trying to like think about, okay, like what does that look like on like future consoles, which are out now.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully that was an okay answer.
No, I mean that's what I said. I wasn't sure as an RPG programmer what that meant. So some of the questions that I told people they could suggested to ask was like maybe geared towards more so like the art side or the visual or the music. So like I said, that's the best answer any of us are gonna get because none of us know what that means anyway. So
yeah, that works.
All right. Jack gave a thumbs up, so that worked for him as well.
Perfect. Okay.
So since you mentioned it like that, games that you're currently playing, you said you're playing a lot of Hades. Is there anything specifically that you're hooked on? Like when you pick it up, it's hard for you to put down. Would that be Hades or?
Yeah, right now Hades is kind of like ruining my life in the most affectionate way possible. I should imagine. Like that game is so good, the music is so good, and it's hard to put down. The other one that I'm like late to the party on, and like it's gonna be funny how late to the party, but like I bought like Zelda Breath of the Wild when it came out, and I kind of like played a bit of it, and then I got like sucked up into whatever other game. But now I'm just like fully hooked on it again. So I've been loving Breath of the Wild again, like way too late to the party, but that's been so much fun for me. I guess also because it's like handheld too, so it's like I can just like play it before I go to bed and stuff like that. And that's way too tempting.
Okay, so I'm gonna out myself here, and I hope that doesn't cause anyone to unfollow me or for you to hang up right now. But I never got into Zelda. And
oh dang!
Okay, so hold on.
We're doing big takes on this today.
There's a reason though, because when Zelda came out, there was other games that were more hardcore, and that's where I was in my stage of gaming. So I have since gone back and developed a like for it. Like I've always understood the story. I know it's Link is the guy, and Zelda's the princess. So I've always understood that.
That's good. You're gonna pass like any sort of like gatekeeping nerd test
for real,
with that knowledge.
For real. Like I write that on the back of my hand so I can get anywhere. But that's actually gonna lead us into another question I have for you. But it's just one of those things where like I understand going back and being late to it because I didn't realize how much I actually missed from just watching my kids play it. So now that when you play it yourself, you're like, oh man, like I must have not been in the room at this part because I don't remember this at all. So I thought I knew more of the game than what I did. So it's interesting because I feel like as gamers, especially anyone who plays RPGs, there's something about specific games that no matter what you do, it brings you back. Everyone hated Dragon Age 2's maps, okay? I think I actually have played more Dragon Age 2 than I did the Origins or Inquisition. Like, I have more time in Inquisition, but I'm more playthroughs in Dragon Age 2.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, there was just something about the character, the way that story panned out for me, it tied everything together so nice and so neatly that it's what made me interested in Bioware to begin with. Because I got introduced to Bioware on accident. I had a friend that was moving, and he gave me 3 Xbox 360 games. One was the original Mass Effect. One was like Saints Row 2, and I can't remember what the other one was. But the only one I ever actually ended up playing was the original Mass Effect. And then that introduced me to, I didn't realize they had done Jade Empire, Knights of the Old Republic.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Jade Empire, yeah.
So do I. I'm still going to keep holding out for a sequel. Like, I'm never going to let go of that. But I'm not going to put you on the spot for that. But hey, if you could let them know, I'd appreciate that.
Send an email to Casey Hudson right now, like, I have hot insider scoops. We need to do this.
Well, I wouldn't be mad if it got to him. Speaking of which, since you brought up Casey Hudson, before I go to this other question that we have from chat, when I was looking into some information on you, it mentioned that you worked on Anthem. Is that what you did your internship on?
So, kind of. So, as I mentioned before, I like a lot of being a programmer is being like kind of pulled onto like what needs attention. And when we were trying to ship Anthem, sorry, my cat's asking for attention again. Hold up one second.
You're good.
When I started, I was working on like pre-prod basically for Dragon Age, which is like, I don't know, the team was so small back then and you could just kind of mess around and have fun with it. I'm like, it's a very fond period I have,
right.
Remembering that. So I was kind of working on that, and then the studio was trying to kick Anthem out the door here, and near the end of a project, usually you'll get all the programmers need to hop on because it's all like little bugs and weird hitches and stuff that you need to get into. So it got to the point where it's like, okay, like every programmer in the studio right now is working on Anthem. So that's the first official game I shipped. I think they told us like, oh yeah, it'll be on it for like a month or something, and then I ended up spending I think like 4 months or something, maybe longer. So yeah, that was like the first game, like shiny AAA game that I shipped, and I like have a pack for and everything. But that was stressful. Like, so that was, I think, like maybe a little bit of my internship, and then when I returned full time too, that was when I put most of my time on Anthem. Yeah. Nice.
I'm a fan of Anthem, so you won't get no hate from me. I actually, when I saw that, I was like, okay, I have to ask because I didn't see it anywhere else. And it's like, it was mentioned like when you joined a group, and then like that group got so much hate you weren't sure you wanted to be associated with. So I wasn't sure if I should ask. But since you mentioned Casey Hudson, you know, he's in the game, so I'm gonna bring this up. But no,
honestly, it's more like, it's just like, I feel like I know Dragon Age a lot better just because most of my dev time has been on it, whereas Anthem is something where I like kind of like hopped in to kind of like help out how I could.
Right.
So I feel like less ownership of it. It's not like a lack of pride or anything. Like, again, it's my first AAA game. Like, I'll talk about it all day. but yeah. So yeah, no worries about asking. And I'm happy that you liked it, man. Like, the customization for your suits is like, that's my favorite part of the game. Probably is just like messing around.
Even the Marvel Avengers game doesn't give you the feeling of really flying like Iron Man the way Anthem does. And I don't care what anybody says about that, but the combat and the flying was just, I still play it now, so that's what brings me back. My best friend, the reason that I moved to Pennsylvania, I was introduced to because of Anthem. So like Anthem has been like almost life-changing for my family. Like we moved to another state because I made such a deep friendship with somebody because of Anthem. So that whole Stronger Together, he even put it in chat right now. Like it's legit. Like it's crazy how much that little saying has impacted, you know, my life and people that I know. So
that's like super nice to hear. Thanks for like sharing that. Yeah.
No, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything you did to help out with that, because it's one of those things like it started with 3, and then with Andromeda it was more hate, and I get that people might not have gotten what they wanted, but it's like I don't see that same type of hate thrown on other things, and I think the association is because the expectations are so lofty because each game got so much better that when it wasn't on par, like they just refused to even accept it. So that's why I feel like those games stuttered, because they couldn't even get out the gate because they weren't even given a chance. So it's like, I see other games, No Man's Sky, I hated it when it first came out. He stuck with it. It's a game now that you can go and get lost in.
to make that like a full fleshed out game now. Yeah, it's like a different title than what release.
Right, and I feel like the basis though, the people that stuck with that game is what enabled him to get there. So that's the same thing.
100%, yes, yeah, 100%, yeah.
We're hoping the same thing with Anthem. Like I'm hoping for Anthem 2.0, whatever they decide to do, I just hope it's more so a love project because I feel like that's where No Man's Sky changed was when he was able to put his love and attention into it the way he wanted to. So that's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming. But no, it's like I said, I'm so happy that you agreed to this because one, my kids look like you. Like I'm mixed, I'm biracial. My kids came out darker than me, so their mom is dark, so they came out darker than me. But there are similarities in like how they carry themselves and how you spoke in things in the videos and things that was part of the reason why I even asked. I was like, man, this would just feel like talking to somebody I knew growing up, and that's what it's turned into. So again, I appreciate you for being here.
Cry.
Not trying to, but that leads us to like some of the questions that people are asking, like what challenges have you faced, like both being a woman and a person of color, as far as like your personal journey into where you're at? Like I'm sure you still get flack from the fanboys online, I'm sure, but like outside of that, like.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know, like what you just said, like obviously like really hit home for me. Like it's been huge for me even seeing other people in the industry be like, that person looks like me, right? And that's a big deal. We don't get to see ourselves in games or represented very often. Even like character creator options, it's like half the time it's like I'm making a character that looks cool. I can't really make a character that looks like me. But yeah, just seeing us, like, I think you get that place by having other people like us behind the scenes trying to like make things move. And for me, like, because I mean, like, game industry obviously has a reputation that isn't great for, you know, Black folks or women.
Right.
But I come from like a computer science degree, which again, like, programming isn't friendly to either of those categories either. So it was weird. I kind of found my experience in university was a lot worse than like being in the industry, at least so far. And like I know honestly people are pretty nice to me, which is like good. I think that's because I'm like not a big enough deal yet, hopefully. But people have been very supportive to me. I figure like the people that are gonna like at least like follow me on like Twitter or take like an interest to me, just like the game stuff or know what I'm about enough to kind of like not even bother with me if they're not there for it. I've had like so far like 3 people be really mean to me and that's it. I also think too like a big part of that is just like getting to work for Bioware. We get a pretty like good fan base. Like people who play our games usually have like some sort of heart. Like I can't imagine a lot of people that like our games without having some version of empathy because our games lean so heavy into like human connection and like understanding different perspectives. So I think that's what's helped a lot is Bioware fans are usually so kind and nice and just like hyped for any sort of content we can provide.
That's true.
But I don't know, it's hard, right? It's like tough to feel like, I was using this metaphor like the other day though, like sometimes it can feel like you're in a room and you're like, like I notice I'm like the only like woman or like only woman of color here. And it like has a moment of feeling like I came to a party and I didn't realize it wasn't a costume party and I'm here in my costume and like everyone is telling me like it's fine, like it's okay you wear a costume. I'm like, I know I still feel awkward, the people are looking at me, and that's like a lot of what it feels like sometimes. But the things like work has done to make the space feel inclusive for everybody and like genuine efforts of like getting better diversity in the studio have made it feel a lot more comfortable. And like the reality of it too is like my team I work with, like I love so dearly, and I mostly just work with dads. And like dads are always like pretty nice to me, and I think like for them they just kind of see me as like a kid.
Right.
So that's more the vibe I've gotten than anything super negative. But yeah, so that's kind of been my own kind of working through it. And I think a lot of the tax of it mostly is just like kind of like the insecurity or imposter syndrome behind it. But when I kind of like tunnel into those things, I kind of try to remind myself, like, you couldn't have like fluked your way all the way here. It's like how I think about it. And when I look back at the list of like things I've done, it makes it a lot harder to kind of, I don't know, talk down to myself.
Right. Well, it's funny because me and my wife were talking about that the other day, that guys are raised to believe that they can achieve anything. And I feel like most ladies are raised, and most women are raised to feel like they need to be apologetic for being themselves. And it's crazy to me because I feel like if you can't be yourself, how are you ever going to know how you're supposed to be in public? So if you're always apologizing for everything you do, like, how can you feel secure in anything you do? So when we first started dating and stuff, I would tell her, like, don't say sorry. Why? Because it loses its meaning. If you're always apologizing, then when you say it after a while, it loses its meaning. So it's like now we don't say sorry unless, we've done something that legit needs a sorry. And it just changed, like, we're less offended, things like that. But it's crazy to think, and she's Asian, so in her culture, she went through some things because she was born a girl and not a boy. So it was just like, so growing up, like, having to struggle with the identity of, like, who she should be and things. So it's like, it's just crazy to think that I have daughters and I've done everything I can to get them to love who they are, to love their skin, to love their hair, to never, try to adhere to other people's standards, and to realize that, like, my wife had to go through that. Like, my mom had to go through that. Like, my mom married a black man, and, like, our house was burned down when I was, like, 4 or 5. So it was, like, just because she was married to my dad. So, like, it's crazy to think that that's the experience I had, but I've never taught my kids anything about, like, hating towards anyone because of that.
Totally.
So it's like, it's cool to see that, you didn't have such a negative experience that it made you see yourself as less. So that's good that you remind yourself, too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's like outside of work, things can be worse for sure. I think just because, like, I don't know, I'm walking down the street, then I just look like a person of color, and especially you just see me from behind, I look like a black woman 100%. But a thing I kind of like, I didn't even think about till you mentioned it, like with hair and stuff too, is like when I started as like a co-op and through university, I like always like straightened my hair and like kept it straight, just because I was kind of like, I think I thought I passed better than I did. I don't think I passed very well, but just kind of that insecurity of like standing out or looking different or like feeling, I don't know, like having unwanted like attention. And then around maybe August last year, 2 years ago, I was doing a presentation at work kind of about basically like diversity and stuff like that too. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like rep the natural hair for this. And then from that point on, I just kind of like kept doing it and learned more about it, and it felt less daunting. And then that became like more and more important to me the more I kind of like allowed myself to feel normal in quotes like with it, and allowed myself to like feel like I looked good, right? And like kind of like push it. It's funny talking about this in the games industry too, like we dress in hoodies all day, but it's like ward off any thoughts of like, oh, this is like unprofessional or anything like that. And now I think about it too, and I think about like it would have meant so much to me, like as a kid, seeing someone with my hair like up there like making games. So now I try to make a point where I'm like, if I like the bigger and more like curly and bouncy I can have my hair when I'm like on camera anytime, like I'll totally do it. So I guess that was like more significant than I kind of like think about too. It's like, oh yeah, I had like a whole hair journey over my time in video games.
Well, I'm sure it's empowering because it is who you are. So when you get to be yourself, I'm sure it comes out in everything else. So that's awesome to hear, though. I say rock it as big as you want for as long as you want.
Thank you. See, and certainly like I resonate with you say like being biracial and stuff too. I'm biracial too. My mom immigrated from Barbados when she was around like high school, like university, and then my dad was born in Canada. But it was, I think, we never had like anything like super
Crazy,
terrible happen to our family. Just kind of like weird circumstances when we were out in different crowds and stuff. But I think like the thing that stood out to me is like my dad was like absolutely like like fierce ally, like willing to get in a fight with like anybody about any sort of like bad takes on race or something like that. But my mom was kind of seeing how she talked to me about things and how I had to handle situations was like very noticeably different. Like my mom was like the first person to tell me like you can't afford to be like less than perfect, like tell me like not to like talk back to people and always be aware of like who has the power in like a situation. And I realize now that like she was doing that because she was so worried about me. When I was a kid, I was just annoyed by it because I was stubborn. But now I look back and I'm like, oh, she was like, she so wanted the best for me in a way that like makes me really sad today. But I'm happy that like I can kind of, I understand what my mom was trying to do, and I can look back on it and be like, no, like we're at a different, like we are pushing to be in a different place in the world right now, and I can like be my full authentic self, and I can like realize the power dynamics of the situation, but like still leverage whatever like scraps of privilege I get to try to make things better for all of us here. Yeah.
Well,
that thought kind of went around everywhere, but
hey, no, you good. Like I said, I wanted you to feel comfortable here, so I'm glad. This is cool to get to hear. Like your story is interesting, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. Like everyone's commenting, like it's nice to hear, you know, what people go through and what they persevere over. So that's awesome though, because it's one of the things that I was gonna actually ask about. Like since you're working on Dragon Age 4 and all, and we're not gonna get into specifics, but I was gonna ask about like hair and skin options. Like, has that been something that I don't know? Maybe you can either say yes or no. It's been touched on. Maybe like I'm just curious because that's been my biggest peeve with any of Bioware's games has just been the hair options. Like, I don't want to look like a brother with a perm. Like, I would like to have some dreads or some curls, something.
I'm gonna quote that and also email that to Casey Hudson.
Hey, please do. You can. I'm even gonna save that. I'm gonna put that on a mug. I'm just saying, like.
I've been trying. Like, when do I get my edges in game? Like, come on.
I'm just saying. Okay, so if I'm running around and I'm a mage, like I feel like. I don't know. Just I don't know. I know that things are limited based on like our technology or what's in the budget. So I'm not knocking that. It's just one of those interesting things where it's like, okay, so since that's important to you and you recognize it like we recognize it, is that something that, you know, you can either A, say it's been discussed or has been touched upon, or nay? Like, I don't like it.
Yeah, I'll give you the most, like, general answer I can pretty much give. But, like, I know it's something I brought up specifically, and I've done terrible photoshops of like my head on like elves and stuff. I'm like, we need this in game. And people, we work with like a proprietary engine, right? So like we have to work in Frostbite, and kind of what we're able to do depends on that base team and also our own tech animators. I will also say too, like everyone at work has been like very like supportive of it, and I think like they should be. Like, I don't think there's an excuse to not be, right? Like it's weird that it's not weird, it's predictable, but like we shouldn't just accept the white default, right? Like we should accept everything as the possible default. And I think we just run into it with hair because like before, like people that look like, there weren't very many people who look like us making games, right? So it just like wasn't even considered. But once it's brought up, it takes a second and people are like, oh, you're right, good point. I can say it's been brought up and I can say it's being looked at. I think, yeah, That's what I'll say for now, so that I don't get myself in trouble.
Right,
but
well,
yes, I'll bring it up again.
All right, so Blaze did want to know. Okay, so he says, what was your experience like creating the Google Cardboard VR shooter? And do you think that experience helped you when moving forward into your career at Bioware?
That's like a deep cut question. Someone had to like look into that. Okay, so let me make sure I got the question right. They were wondering about me making a Google VR game and how that played into like my experience or getting a job at Bioware. Was that the question? Did I get that right?
When moving forward into your career at Bioware, yes.
Okay. So that game that I made for a hackathon in university. It was my university's first hackathon. I had a team of like 4 people. We had one person that like specialized in bio, like made our assets, and then the other 3 of us were like programmers. And we had, I think it was like a 12-hour hackathon. So we're like, okay, we want to make a game. We want to make a VR game. Let's try to make like basically like asteroids, but in 3D space. And especially at the time too, like VR was like starting to boom, unlike it's kind of like stagnated now. I mean, I say that, but Half-Life Alyx came out, so what do I know? But anyways, we decided to make this game. We submitted it. We thought it was going to be okay, and then we ended up winning it, and that was like really awesome and really satisfying. But I think, one, it was really fun to make that game with a team of just friends. 2, it's like we made it in Unity, and like for like anyone looking to get a job in games, like get familiar with any engine. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, like for Bioware we use Frostbite, which is proprietary, so you need to you can't just like download it and like try it out, right? But like having experience with other game engines is going to help you out so much for like getting to learn the ropes of any other one and get familiar with it, because there are similar basics to all of it. And then mostly like what I've found most, at least when I was interviewing for like any job in tech, is like people love talking about your side projects and like what else you've been working on. And they like hearing about that stuff. So I know when I did my interview for Bioware, I was just like a talking point immediately. Like, hey, I noticed you did this VR game. Like, what challenges did you run into? And I could talk about that. And my manager at the time too was like, oh, did you read like I think it was like Valve's like white papers on like trying to work with like VR and how they do stuff, and I was like, no. And then we got in a big conversation about that. So I think just like having a talking point or like anything you're excited about like would help in that circumstance, and like certainly like helped me. Like Bioware's not looking at any VR stuff, I mean, at least that I know about, but
right. Well, we got Skyrim in VR.
To talk about was good.
we did get Skyrim in VR, so if we end up with Dragon Age in VR, you know the fandom would throw the money at them. So I'm just saying, you know they would too.
Noted.
Especially if there was romance options, you know full well. Like I ain't even gonna go down that tunnel, but one of my good friends, Jan, who I met because of Twitter, is huge into Dragon Age. She posts like a screenshot almost every day because that's how often she plays it. But what I was talking to her about, we were saying like the romance options. Is that something that's discussed as a whole, or is that just like the writing portion of it, or are there other aspects that like they come to you guys as a group to discuss, or is it basically you're like in your sections working on your portions?
Good question. I think it depends on the IP. For this game that we've been working on, it's felt like very open. Like, I mean, our writing team is like real good too, but they have they'll kind of like go over like the idea for like main story beats we want to hit and like tell us about followers and stuff, and like when they can reveal that stuff, everyone like within the studio is very excited too. Like we're just as hyped,
right?
And then something really lucky we have is that like we use Slack as like our tool of communicating, but there's a whole channel kind of dedicated to like ask the writers anything. So if you're curious about something in there, you can pop in there and they'll give you a little answer. It's by no means like designed by like committee or anything like that, but I think that they'll have surveys every once in a while too, like, oh, who's like your prospective like favorite follower, and then people will like go nuts for who they like.
Right.
And I know there was a while ago we did a little thing called we did like a local charity thing. It was called Gamers for Groceries. We were just like raising money for
Right, I
Food
saw
Banks
that.
Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And the writers were in there kind of talking about like whatever the reaction that is good for characters and kind of leads them. Like you want people to like really hate the character or like really love the character, and like in between kind of sucks. So like if you get any of those reactions, that's good. And I think for the most part, like with our like romances and stuff like that too, like they try to make sure that like everyone is like represented, right? So like you don't have to be like compulsory like hetero relationship. Like
right.
there are more options and there's more dimensions of what those relationships can look like. And I think the writing team is like always trying to get something for everyone that might play our game.
Gotcha. So I know the Weeks are two of my favorite people that work on the writing team. So I know some of the team.
Yeah.
So like following them on Twitter, I follow them on Twitter for stuff outside of Bioware because they're just great people. Like that's why I said I'm sure being in that environment has probably also helped because it seems conducive for inclusivity. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, they're like
Go ahead.
So sweet. Like I could say like personally too, like especially with like Black Lives Matter gaining huge traction in the summer, and then just kind of seeing all the things that were happening and like dealing with racism in Canada, which certainly exists too. Like the Weeks is like both kind of like reached out to me to make sure I was like doing all right and like check in on me. Like they're very
awesome.
sweet people. Yeah.
They're awesome. That's why I said even if they didn't work at Bioware, I would still love them just as who they seem to. They seem like who they are is who they actually are on Twitter. Like you know how some people it seems like a persona.
Yeah.
With them, like hands down, like I love them. Like I feel like there's certain people you feel like if you met you'd mesh with, and I definitely like them too. Especially, I don't know. I'm gonna put it to you this way. I accidentally romanced Dorian in Dragon Age Inquisition. Like I didn't have a problem with it. It's just I was going for someone else, and I accidentally stumbled into the relationship with Dorian, and it was the best experience I ever had. So it was like I will tell anyone hands down, you want to romance anyone, go with Dorian. I swear for everything. What that man has to go through with his family, like I'm getting goosebumps just talking about like the way it touches you, being a heterosexual male, like it just hit home with me. Like man, if my kids had to go through that, like I couldn't be that dad. Like I would not use magic to try to straighten my kid out. Like it was crazy how much that affected me. I'm sitting there like crying. Look, I ain't even gonna lie. I was sitting there crying like, man, this is messed up, man. I ain't even supposed to like this man like that. Like it was just crazy that ended up being like my favorite romance of Inquisition, and I stumbled into it.
Totally. Like, I mean, that's what makes the games good, right? Like,
right.
I think I was talking to another friend about this too, where he was kind of talking about how he's like, I'm not sure like what changed, but he's like now in games like I just have I'll romance whoever, and he was like usually whoever romances me first, but he's like seeing like the dimensions of like what like a non-hetero relationship like looks like has been like a new like kind of cool like experience, and not one that like I don't know, like you can totally imagine this like 10 years ago people being like way more like icky about it, but people are just like a lot more chill with just like, you know what, whatever. Also, like I've never romanced Dorian, but I don't know if I've actually played as a male Inquisitor before. I know like at a certain point he'll be like, by the way, no. But I was like, I've been replaying it recently, just because like I was like, well, I should refresh myself, right? But I get so irked by Dorian saying stuff about slavery at the beginning of the game. I'm like, oh, fuck your shit.
Right.
But it's a Bioware game, so obviously people have growth and change and everything too. But like, yeah, it's a good arc. The writing team's good. I don't know what to say. Yeah, they're great.
The same reason why Dorian irked you, though, is the same reason why I liked Fenris so much and why I liked 2 so much is because what Fenris went through and his ordeals with slavery. And I think that's probably why 2 was one of my favorites, is because not only did he get, to give them their coming upness, but like you get to see them grow. There's only a couple characters that I feel were like maybe not as fleshed out, and it's because they were added on. Sebastian, I'm looking at you, but still were interesting characters, so they're still memorable even in like their shortcomings. So like it's like you said
Yes,
with
absolutely.
Solus, people either hate Solus or love Solus. Like I cannot
Totally.
bring myself to romance him because I know he's going to take my arm. So I'm like, I'm not even messing with this dude. So because I played through it first with the male archer and knew what was going to
Mm.
happen, I couldn't bring myself to put my female character through that. So I was like, I ain't even doing it. So yeah, it's one of those. I'm like, I've gone through almost every game and romanced everybody, but Solus, I'm not even touching. I'm like, I can't wait to kill that fool. I'm not even messing around. Like, I know so many people that get mad at me. They're like, you can't hurt Solus. Look, you want to be a Solus Mancer? Go ahead. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying, not my thing. I like my
I
egg
know, like,
fully cooked.
if the
Not
writers
a
heard that, they'd
cracked
just be
yolk.
like salivating at it, like, yeah, perfect.
Right? That's funny though. So I'm sure the experiences of the fandom affect your job, but Jack was actually wondering, like, are there any challenges working with the Frost engine, or do you feel it was as user friendly as like some of the other ones like Unity or Unreal that you got to use?
It is like certainly like easy, like hardest engine I've worked with, but also like keep in mind like I'm looking at it from a very programmer lens. Also like the type of game I worked on with working with Frosted like in a AAA context versus working on Unity and like a very indie making my own stuff like
Right.
process, like very different to compare, right? So like those caveats noted. But it's tricky, it's finicky, and a lot of it comes down to how much time you have to make the editors look good, which like comes down to programmers. So kind of like I have myself to blame with that. But the stuff it can produce just looks so gorgeous. Like I don't know, it's tough to find engines that look better than Frostbite. So that's always something that's really cool to see. Like especially like coming back to Anthem too. Like oh my god, that game looks gorgeous. Just real nice looking. But it's tricky. I found the hardest part for me was just like coming from like open source engines, like being able to Google any problem I had or using like Stack Overflow or something like that to see like how do I do this, or I'm having a problem with that, or I'm stuck on this, versus working with Frostbite where it's like figure it out, good luck, which is like nice to have points to flex with, like as a programmer, like yo, I can't even use Stack Overflow. But or it's like I have like a very niche problem and I gotta talk to like the one dude in the company who built it like 5 years ago because he might know how to fix it. So those can sometimes be frustrating, but I mean it's still game dev at the end of the day. You're always doing stuff that like hopefully like innovates and hasn't necessarily been done before.
Right. Well, I'd agree completely. Like the games are always beautiful. I was also wondering, I don't know if you know personally or not, but I noticed that I haven't seen too many games with Frostbite that have a camera mode outside of like computer
kind of
mods.
like how like Insomniac does with like Spider-Man and stuff like that sort of camera mode.
Yeah, is that something is that why? Because the way someone else explained it to me, working with Frostbite is like being an iPhone user compared to an Android user. Like if it's not made specifically for Apple, it's not going to work the way it's supposed to. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
That's an interesting comparison. I don't disagree like with it. A lot of it is just like I'm trying to think about what that would take. I haven't heard about that mode in any of our other games, and like typically like especially Bioware too, it's like that engine was made as like an FPS engine, and then Bioware got shifted to it whenever EA's kind of I think it was when Soderman was in charge. Sorry, I'm trying to remember my EA history, which is like a deep, crazy well. But there was a point in time when the company was like, everyone's going to use Frostbite, shift to this, and then Bioware had to get in gear to try to put all these RPG elements into an FPS engine, which was tough, and I feel grateful I was not there for it because that sounds really hard. But yeah, I think because the games vary so much and the difference with them, you might have to make like a custom edit mode for like every game you might have to do that. I'm not an engine programmer though,
Right.
so I'm not like, my guess is probably as good as yours, honestly.
Okay. Fair enough. I just figured, if you're around it, maybe you've heard some. I was just thinking about it the other day. Like, I love photo modes in any game I play, and I've taken a lot of pictures throughout the years, even of like Anthem, of Mass Effect, and like they're always screenshots. And I just realized the other day I've never seen a photo mode in any of them. So just figured I'd ask.
Yeah, makes sense.
Before we go any further, before we ask some more questions, how much time are you wanting to hang out? Like, I don't want you rushed. I don't want you to feel like you're forced to be here, but.
Thank you for checking it. I'm feeling good right now. I got more time.
Okay.
I'm fine. Actually, here's what I'll do. Give me like 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll get myself like a glass of water, and then we can dive back in. But yeah, I don't have like another commitment tonight or anything, so I'm good to keep hanging out.
Okay, sweet. All right, well, I'll let you have 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and mute it and just let me know when you're back, and I'll go ahead and talk to chat, and we'll let you have your time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Sweet. Man, thanks, guys, for hanging out. Thanks for the questions and everything. Man, this is actually really cool. I'm glad I reached out to a couple of different developers to see if anyone was interested, and she said she was interested. So I first noticed her in one of the Bioware videos when they were discussing Dragon Age. So I followed her, she followed me, and we both feel the same about Black Lives Matter. So I think that's probably what started that. But it's cool to get to know like the other side to it, and like especially the stuff about frostbite, like hearing it from someone who has to deal with it, and seeing that they have to work with things to implement it makes you appreciate some of the struggles they probably had with it. Jack, I've done like MCs and stuff and interviews before, but this is the first time I've ever done anything like this on stream. I'm just good with talking. My wife gets mad at me sometimes, but I'm just good with the talking. Or she rolls her eyes at me. Jack, he likes to talk. He's still. I could probably sell electricity to on this show. I'm not gonna lie. I convinced her to marry me, and she's been here for 12 years, so obviously I'm a good talker. No, this is awesome. I hope to get to do more of these. I've had a couple other people message me back, so this might be something we get to do going forward. So that's cool though. Blaze, you actually found some information I didn't even see. I saw the little thing about Anthem and had to ask. I still love that game. I met so many good people. I met Jack from there. JT, like jeez. That's awesome. So if you guys have any more questions or anything, No, I don't know if I want OG's commercials right now, because we not talking about no Bastion KY jelly. we not, no. Jack, do not encourage that man. Please do not. He will slide through with the quickness too.
Like a 45-second commercial started.
I know. Oh my gosh. Ooh. I'm gonna have to ask, or not ask, but I'm gonna bring up a question. I need to ask him for a good.
This fucking kid takes my shit and brings it back.
Mrs. Beats is currently looking for her blanket. If anyone has seen her blanket, please speak up in chat. If you have her blanket, bring it back ASAP. I'm getting the side eye. I may need assistance. 11:30, pimp down, pimping the stress. 1 second, I'll find your blanket. Give me a minute. I do appreciate you guys hanging out with us this evening. This I was gonna do video, but it's not working. I couldn't get the Zoom to work right, and then the Discord won't pull up for whatever reason on the streaming computer now. So here we are with the voice discussions with Katrina Barkwell. Oh, I do have to apologize.
17 blankets in his bed.
I don't even think your blanket's in his bed. I think he actually left your blanket like on my chair. So I may actually be sitting on your blanket, so don't beat me.
No, that was yours.
Oh, that is mine. Where's your blanket? I don't know. Give me 1 second, folks. While I'm loading this in, I'm going to run to the restroom, and I will be right back. I'm bugging it. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty. We're going to ask the deep dive in questions. We're going to find out favorite romances.
So hey, yo, I'm back.
Welcome back. No, Jack, he's not punched in the eye. That's the tattoo I chose. They tattoos. Okay, so I wanted tattoos on my Mass Effect character forever. Then they gave us tattoos, and I was like, I don't know who's in charge of tattoos, but I have tattoos. They should have consulted. So Casey Hudson, CC. I'm just kidding. No, but I'm just glad that they added. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, okay, they gave us something, so I'll take it. But no, he's not punched in the eye. That's the tattoo I chose. Thank you for making me self-conscious about my character's eye now. Welcome back. So the nitty-gritty questions that I have to ask though, like, what is your favorite gaming food or beverage?
Oh, that might be under NDA. I don't know about that. Yeah. This is like so very gross. I'm kind of basic. I'm about that Mountain Dew Code Red. That's honest to God my favorite like gaming beverage. It's so good. I love cherry flavor anything though, but yeah, Mountain Dew Code Red, favorite gaming beverage, and then I think this counts as like a gaming food. Can like sweet chili heat Doritos? Is that like a valid answer? Will you accept that?
That is definitely a valid answer. Okay, so I love everything Mountain Dew as well. I often get criticized.
Nice. Okay, man after my own heart.
I often get criticized for my beverage choices. My wife encourages me to drink more water, so I definitely feel you there. I'm currently drinking a Game Fuel, so yes, that's funny. But no, I'm more of a anything that's within arm's reach snacker. So other than the drink, so the sweet chili anything like would fit for me. So you're good.
Okay, nice.
It's just interesting
I got that one good.
because I learned a lot of things watching the developers from Undead Labs. Like I love those guys, and the reason being is because they're so down to earth and they're so funny. But like they have streaming issues, they have technical difficulties, and to see that it doesn't just happen to me makes me feel like I'm not, a failure at life when that stuff happens. So it's good to see that, people enjoy their Mountain Dews and their Doritos just as much as I do. All right.
Absolutely.
So, would you say that RPGs then are your favorite genre of game? Not just because you work there, but like in general, if you had to choose, would that be like your go-to? I mean, other than Zelda.
Oh, okay, yeah, I feel you. I'm the type of gamer, I'll play like anything that's like got a good rating. There's few games I won't try out and play because I really do like playing anything that's like good or interesting. I really love RPGs. I love like even JRPGs. I think Chrono Trigger is probably my favorite RPG. But honestly, like the genre like takes my heart is like a really punishing like 2D platformer or like bullet hell or something like that. Like I love those games.
Okay.
Like when Cuphead came out, I was a huge fan of that.
What about My Friend Pedro?
Game I really like. And any sort of roguelike will really get me too. Like I mentioned before with Hades or like Dead Cells before that, I was big into that. But I don't know, it's tough. I really like most genres of anything.
Okay.
But yeah, I think 2D platformer is probably my answer. Yeah.
Nice. That's what some would call the classics because, you know, I think it's funny because people complain about graphics in games, and I'm like, bro, I remember when we didn't have graphics. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm just happy my character has 2 eyeballs and they move. Like, like stop already.
I'm just happy when something makes a noise and it doesn't, like, cut out the audio of the music. Like, that's big.
Right? Very true, very true. That's funny. What about Dark Souls? Oh my gosh. Okay, so Jack's a fan of Dark Souls. So he's wondering, are you a fan of Dark Souls?
I am like, how will I describe this? I suck at Souls games. I haven't beaten one yet. I think I own all of them. But mostly a lot of my experience with Soul games has been like a very chatty, like backseat gamer with other people playing it properly. Because man, it's just like there's so many games now. I don't always have the time to dump into it. But I remember it was like Demon Souls. I think because that would have been 360. I think that was the first one that came out. But I had at this point in time, I was in university. I was working a warehouse job, and another one of the guys there knew I liked video games. So he was like, I bought Demon Souls. I suck at it. Like, do you want this? I was like, yeah, for sure, man. And I took it. And that was my first experience playing the Souls game. And it took me way too long to figure out I could, like, run past, like, that, like, dragon right at the beginning and go through a door. I just ate shit on that fucking dragon so many times. But I like him. I'm no good at him. That's how I describe it.
Okay, hey, I'm of the like mind. So the closest I get is Remnant. So Remnant has a Souls-esque vibe to it, and like even that, I die way more than I'm accustomed to. But I play it because it's challenging, but like it's not break your controller challenging. Like I've never been a rage quitter to begin with, but yeah, I sucked at the Souls games. I didn't know that either. So I couldn't figure out the game because I'm waiting for them to tell me the story. I didn't know I had to find it. So, you know.
Oh, no, you gotta, like, figure that out. You're, like, trying to suss out clues. Like, you're reading, like, a J.R.R. Tolkien book without, like, a whole, like, index at the beginning and end. Like,
yeah, and if
the
Oblivion taught me anything, I love to read, but I don't want to spend 50% of my time playing the game reading to understand what I'm supposed to be doing. So
100%, yeah, those games are definitely. It's like you almost have to like be embedded into like a community to get into those because you got so many other people figuring stuff out about those games. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that was like I said, that was pre-Twitter and everything for me too. So I didn't know there was actually groups of people out there who sucked at them as bad as I did, and they discussed it and they worked through it. So. I don't mind being pushed, Jack. I just don't like being punished. Like, there's a difference.
Oh, I definitely feel that.
All right, so let's see here. There was one other thing that I forgot. Oh, okay. I would say, in your opinion, what do you think would be a change you'd like to see in game development? Be it from anything, any aspect, any personal experience, or just overarching, just like in general. Because this year, the gaming industry has been in a lot of fire for a lot of things. So, like, there's a lot of things that we know that they're working on and need to change. But, I mean, you've already said your experiences have been different than what other people have had. But even said, you know, you might have seen some things. So what's something you wouldn't mind seeing overarching change in game development?
Like, the easiest one off the top of my head is, like, definitely, like, crunch and, like, in the industry is, like, such a plague. And crunch culture can be so negative too. I have like a big thread on this on Twitter too, so it's not a particularly new take or anything, but just like I know for me the reason like I haven't like I've still crunched, but it hasn't been terrible just because my team took such good care of me and kind of like tried to protect like the juniors at the studio, right?
Right.
But I mean, it still sucks to see, and it's like hard when the rest of your team is like sitting down and staying late and extra nights. Like you want to be there to help too, right? You want to feel like you're pulling your weight, especially like if you're like a person of color or a woman or any sort of like marginalized group you belong to. That pressure is going to feel tenfold too, because you want to feel like, no, I like deserve to be here. I belong. I can stick it out for the hardest parts of game development. But it's all kind of like a trap, right? Like it doesn't have to be that way. Like we don't have to crunch to make good games, especially like at a AAA level. It just kind of feels like unacceptable, right? Because like you hope that most of these big game studios actually have the money to like give everyone like a wage over time, and I think like a lot of that too is like pressure to get things done by a certain release date, right? But I think the general culture of like having things come out at a certain time or people being like overly demanding about things coming out kind of like feeds into that. Like I feel so bad for all the folks down at like CD Projekt Red like having to crunch for like Cyberpunk 2077 just because they've been running that marathon so long, and I know like when it came to like releasing the game too, it's like very similar to university for me, where it's like you have an assignment and you know it's due this day, and you're just like, after I submit this, I never want to look at this code again. But you come up to that date, and then you're like, okay, we got an extension of 6 months or something, whatever, like it may be, and then you're like, oh, I'm so relieved for the time, but then you know you're gonna be like in that pressure cooker for that amount of time longer, and that's I don't know, that's tough, and I hope it's gonna be a thing that I see less of in the future, but I don't know, it's really up to, I mean, way above my pay grade, who decides that? but that's something I'd like to see disappear. And then, I mean, the other big thing I want to see change in games is just like way more diversity, way more representation, and like shameless representation for everyone. I think the argument that like games like that don't sell just like isn't applicable. I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say the funny thing is, anytime anyone brings it up, I'm like, hey, have you not heard of Tomb Raider? I'm like, how can you say games like that don't sell? Do you not remember Angelina Jolie made millions off of movies that weren't even that good, based off of the game? So I'm just saying, like, you can't say it doesn't sell when there's obviously like. It's like saying Mount Rushmore is not a side, like a sword to the face to the natives when it's right there in front of their face every day, reminding them, hey, that used to be your sacred land.
God, yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? So it's like you can't say it's not possible when it's right there in front of you. So I read your thread, which is why I asked that question.
You knew.
I did. No, but I'm just saying it's one of the things. Like I said, my son looks like his mom. So my son looks Asian, but whenever he plays games, he chooses darker skin colors. I've never said anything to him. I've never, like, nothing. And it's just because he sees that's what his family includes, he wants to be included too. So it's like, if you can't tell me representation doesn't matter, then you haven't seen my 6-year-old get to choose people and be like, hey, Dad, what's up with these hairs? Like, seriously, like, and his hair's straight. But he sees my hair's curly. He sees, his sister's hair's curly. His grandpa's hair is curly, like his aunt, like he sees it, but he doesn't see it's available. So I'm like, anytime anybody brings it up, I'm like, you can't even approach me about that, because when my kids are together, they look like the United Nations, like they really do, and I'm glad 100%. They do, because they had to learn how to protect each other, dealing with that growing up, and like how to interact, with society, and they already had an upper hand because they were already being dealt with, like. Seeing your brother being treated differently than you, and knowing the only difference is that he's a couple shades darker than you, like it touches kids in a way that people don't even understand. So it's like saying that representation 100%. Don't matter, bro. I'm still mad. The only other thing, if you want to include in that email, is why won't they let me romance me a black woman in Dragon Age?
Oh my god! Yeah, okay, so I could go
They
off
gave
on
me
that.
Vivian, and then she's with some old rich white dying dude, and I was like, y'all for real? Y'all gave me Dorian, thank you, but really, like Vivian's just like, they're nah, darling, not today. I'm like, really? Like, no, okay. I just want to make sure that that gets included in that email somewhere. Be like, oh yeah, and by the way, he said black women matter too. It's just funny because my
dark
wife
skinned
and
women are beautiful. We need to include that.
well, it's funny because my wife is funny about games. Like she encourages us. She likes to see all the romances too. So she's like, nah, do this one, do that one. Like she'll be just as mad as I am, and sometimes she'll be even madder. I'm like, you don't even play. But it's just funny because she even sees this. So it's like Dragon Age is like an experience in polyamorous love because you can literally play the game 100 times and like romance everybody and have different experiences. So it's just crazy that there's that amount of detail in the story that they were able to incorporate in the game, which is why I'm such a Bioware fan because the stories brought me in, but it's like the other things they added onto it is what kept me around.
100%. Yeah, that replayability for like getting to know characters, and really a testament to like what a good job the writers do for these like characters to be like, man, I really want to know about this person though. Like I can do another playthrough or like do this like different choice here. Yeah, I definitely agree. And also like certainly like with what you were saying, like for your kids and stuff too, like when people say that like representation like doesn't matter, it's almost like an immediate tell, like, ooh, like you don't know like what the world looks like for most of us, right? Like it's immediately very obvious when I don't see people that look like my family or I don't see people that look like my friends like in a game, because the world I occupy isn't like only filled with like one shade of person or like one type of hair texture. And it's like, I don't know, it like doesn't make me sad because I have a little sympathy for it, but like it's such a big part of the world that these people just like definitely don't know or don't see. And it costs like, it's only good to add, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's such a benefit to have that.
More inclusivity to me is like more accessibility, which means more income. Yeah. It's like, okay, so I brought up Undead Labs, and I know they're not necessarily a competitor, but I just use them as an example because they're the reason why I felt even inclined to start doing things like this, is because I see these things they get attacked for, and it's crazy to me that you say you can love a game, but then you attack the person that made it because they don't meet your expectations. It's like, there's millions of people in this world. How do you feel like your expectations are the only ones that matter? And it's seeing how they navigate that. It was just crazy to me because they're quick with the block in the chat and stuff. So I love to see it, but it's just interesting to see that even as a majority white studio, the love and support that they have for everyone is just it's just astounding, and that's why I love their games and everything. Like they came up with their trailer, and the first thing I noticed in their trailer was it was a black woman walking through the snow, and I knew it was State of Decay only because I was just anticipating them announcing it because they've been hinting about it. But it was just seeing the inclusivity in that, and like that whole Xbox showcase. There were like 4, 5, 6. Just seeing.
Yeah, I remember being like very impressed with that. I was like, "What? There's like color in this. This is great."
Right. And then they showed that damn deer, and I was like, "Okay, so she gonna be the first one to die?" I'm just kidding. But
oh my God. No, it's the same thought that goes in my head at first. I'm like, come
on. No, it's just interesting though that being in the world and seeing it from like the inside, it's not as much different. It's the same thing I tell people like. I've been fortunate enough to be in circumstances where I've met celebrities, but I've honestly never been starstruck. Like, and I think it's because at a young age, like the wisdom my grandmother instilled in me, and how just because you see someone, you might think they're crazy. They might just be having an off day. Like, you never really know what someone's going through, and not to quickly assume like where they're coming from. It's just crazy that stuck with me throughout all my life. Like. So it's enabled me to see that, like, when you meet someone, like, when I met DMX, and I don't care, he can hate me if he wants to. When I met DMX, he was with his girlfriend, not his wife. I was like, dude, who, what? And then, like, they, like, pushed me off to the side, like, didn't want me to say nothing. I was like,
oh my God.
I'm not going to notice, like, like you're a celebrity. Like how like people just don't call them out. And I'm like that's just weird to me that they're not treated with the same type of sympathy or apathy that they should be given because they're still human beings. Like CD Project
Yeah.
Red, like I would be scared to even have that on my bio right now because of the insane stuff that people are saying over a video game.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of sense of entitlement. I don't even know. It's like hard talking because even when before I was working in games and just a fan of games, like it would never occur to me to just like be shitty to any sort of like devs at a studio. I don't know. It's bad.
It is, and it's one of those things that hopefully, along with this pandemic, will change and go away. But I really feel like you're at a studio that I honestly feel is trying to gear themselves toward that. They've always been that way because of who's been there. Like I said, getting to know the Weeks made me have a better understanding of Bioware, regardless of like whatever happens outside that, because they're allowed to be them regardless and still work there. So it's like regardless of what they say and who it offends, they still have the support of Bioware. So it's like that knowing that it's one of the reasons why I love their game so much is because you can see that they're trying to be pioneers in that and be inclusive. I mean, Krim was the first trans character that I can think of in an RPG, maybe second or third in a video game, but like in a good light. So like even
that representation was like executed like well in my opinion, and I know like lots of fans like Krim meant a lot to them, especially like we don't get to see a lot of trans mask people in representation of games either. So.
True. One of the new games that came out that my friend Blaze is playing. It's one of the story games. I can't. He told me what it was.
Tell me why?
Yes, I think that's it. One of them is trans, and I didn't. You wouldn't tell it from like the cover or anything, but it was just it's. I grew okay. So let me backtrack a little bit. The high school I went to was majority black, and like there was one all white person and me, and like a couple white teachers. So like I never felt like I wasn't included. So I never felt like an outcast. So luckily I was included in everything. And part of that was because my family was from there and they knew the family and things like that. So I had like a foot in that I might not have had elsewise. But it's one of my friends in high school was going through things like that. And like he had to hide it from everyone. Like if they had found out, that he probably would have been like beaten to death at the time. So it was like personally knowing someone that went through that and then seeing Krim, it was like, man, it was like even seeing that, like it's crazy because you never know, like I said, you never know anyone's experiences. So no one would know looking at me that I had a friend in high school that experienced that. But then to see it in that game and represented in such a manner that it made me reminiscent of that friend was like, it's cool that they were able to do that with a game. Like then anytime they say that games aren't like art, it's crazy to me.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Exactly. Yep. Blaze said he just finished the game yesterday, and it is an amazing game, and the trans character is great. And I miss you.
I gotta pick it up. I just finished watching a friend stream. What is it? Life is Strange 2, which I know is the same studio that made that. But I was very curious about it. I want to pick it up though. Yeah.
All right. Oh, here's another one. Jack says, being a dev, what is the question that people ask that people should stop asking?
Oh my god. Release date when we haven't announced one. I can't tell you half the time I don't know. But it's like sometimes just like anything, like I just show up and someone's like release date. I'm like, I'm not gonna throw away my job so that I can get this one hot scoop up there. And again, like half the time, like we don't know. We have like a rough timeline, but yeah.
Right, like you said, it's like homework. Like you have a rough timeline when that stuff's due, but the overall project, like they have a target date, but like they're not sure. So of course, that makes sense.
Totally, and especially like working for a AAA studio too, like working for like bigger EA, it's like they have a whole plan on like what they want to release when, and like hopefully not stomp on other releases. So it's like who knows like what's actually gonna happen when the time comes up. So yeah, that's the thing I can like never answer, and I'm like, Well, but yeah, I think that's the only one I get spammed. Yeah.
I'm sure too, because as soon as they find out what you're working, I'm sure that's the first thing. That's why I led with saying I'm not going to ask you anything that's going to compromise your position.
Yeah, that is very appreciated. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, all right. Here's another one. As far as platforms go, you said you do have a work computer, but like, do you play any consoles? Are you mostly PC? Do you have a preference?
Good question. I guess mostly PC now, but it kind of like ebbs and wanes depending on how good my PC is at the time. Right now, I can play everything I want to, so
Gotcha.
that works okay. I'm pretty garbage at like PC shooters though. I'm a lot better with controller, just kind of like that's what I like grew up with, like with Halo and stuff. So controller shooters work better for me. Right now for I guess old gen that I don't have any new gen consoles. I'm kind of trying to wait till there's more out there for me to play. But as for last gen, like I have a Switch, as I mentioned, because I was like playing like
Zelda
all the time recently. And then I have a PS4, which I bought when God of War came out. And then I've been playing stuff off that. Right now, just like PlayStation has the IPs that I'm really interested in. Because I think, like you mentioned before, like I've gotten kind of like burnt out on Halo. I'm curious to see what they do with this next one. But yeah, and then for next gen, I think like now that it's like relevant to my job and I should like be playing all the consoles, I'll probably end up getting both of them. But I'll wait till maybe there's like not a pandemic or like a title that I'm like really excited about that they have on there.
My approach to any of the new consoles,
kind of everything.
Gotcha. My approach to any new consoles though is I normally wait until the second gen comes out.
Yeah, and then you can get something. Yeah, because like I have a PS4 Pro, and it is kind of nice to get that little boost and whatever, or wait for a price drop on like the older one. Whatever's suiting me at the time.
I still have my original 360, so I got lucky. I never got the Red Ring of Death, and it was the second gen.
I didn't either. I still have my 360 too.
Sweet. What else? Okay, so you said IPs you like on PlayStation. So, what do you mean?
What are those IPs? Like I mentioned, like God of War. Like I liked God of War when it was on PS2. I think it was on the first one. But I love those games, and I played them. And then of course on like PS3 like generation, it kind of like fell off, and then they released like the new like I guess rebooted like God of War, and I was so hype about it. I was so happy it like did well too. So that was one that those always like a really like PlayStation game to me too. Like I remember growing up, like I mentioned my brother before too, when Xbox came out, we'd have Xbox, and my brother's best friend got PlayStation, and we could kind of alternate through that to play all the games like total. But God of War was one I was always excited to visit and steal. I'm just turning around to like look at my game stack right now. The Last of Us, even though I haven't played The Last of Us 2 yet, just because I have too big of a backlog of games, but The Last of Us, super exciting IP. What else?
Did you like Parasite Eve?
I don't know if I've played that, actually. I'm going to look it up right now.
I was trying to think of what it was, too. Jack asked, and I'm like, I'm not sure what that is. Jack, what is that
I
one? I'm
might have
not
to
sure.
check it out.
No,
I have so many games that I've, like, started. Oh, this looks like a very... Oh, I guess Final Fantasy. That's an obvious answer. I didn't say it. But Final Fantasy, I liked the remake so much that they did, too.
Did you play the one before the remake?
Like Final Fantasy 7, like the original one?
No, the one with the all-guy cast. What was that?
Oh, yeah, like Final Fantasy 15?
15?
15 the right number? There's so many of them.
I know, that's why I was trying to think.
No, I hadn't actually. It was another one I was kind of like waiting on. Final Fantasy 7 Remake was just like the right size at the right time I can dig into it. I have like too many like big deep
games,
games to get into right now. Like I've started Persona 5 and I haven't finished it. I've started Horizon Zero Dawn and I haven't finished it. Not that they're not good, they're just like big games.
Gotcha. Oh, she started. Didn't she say you started on the PlayStation 2? I think Parasite Eve was a PlayStation 1 game. I don't know. I don't remember that one either, though. It's made by Square, apparently. Did I lose you? Oh, I think I lost her. Give me 1 second. All right, we're going to call her back and just ask a couple more questions, and then I'm going to let her go for the evening. Okay, I don't know what happened. It was like paused. I couldn't hear anything.
Okay. You can hear me now, though?
Yes, I think it was on my
Sweet,
end. My
okay.
screen stopped moving, so I think it was my end.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy you got started. Technology is not cooperating today.
No, well that's why I don't even complain. With everything else going on in the world, I'm like, as long as it semi works, I'm at peace. So it could be a lot worse.
Good point.
All right, so we gonna wrap up. Just a couple more questions so that we can let you get out of here and enjoy the rest of your evening. But
Sounds good, yeah.
Is there any games that are upcoming other than the one you're working on that you're super excited to look at or to get your hands on?
Okay, question. I feel like the obvious answer is God of War because I've mentioned it like 30 times.
Right.
Already. I'm excited about that, even though we know like little about it. Honestly, I've been kind of trying to like tether my hype train on things just because I know it's like a pandemic and like work is so unpredictable for when anyone can get things done. So many things have been pushed back too. But I think that I'm sure if I thought on it more, I'd probably have a better answer. But that's like an obvious one that I'm excited about.
No, that's good. Have you tried Horizon Zero Dawn yet?
I've started it. I have not beaten it, but that will be another one that will be cool. And I have time to beat the game before it actually comes out. I'm also kind of excited about the new Hellblade game too. I'm sure it'll be like another like little short thing, but I thought the first Hellblade was like pretty cool and interesting. So
nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check down that. I don't think I got into that one either. I've heard people talk about Hellblade, but I don't know. I honestly even know if I've even seen any of the gameplay for it.
It's like I don't know even how to describe it. I think it's maybe better to go in blind, but it's pretty cool.
Okay.
It's short too. Yeah.
Oh wait, you talking about Swing and Sacrifice?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I for whatever reason I was picturing like something else. I don't know what I was thinking, but not that. Yo, I started that game. I'm not even gonna lie. So we decided to stream it on a Friday night, and I started that game, and it started doing the trippiness. Mrs. Beast was like, "Nah, I don't think this is gonna work for me." She left. She's like, "No, I ain't doing this." So needless to say, I think I played that game for like an hour and a half, and I was like, "Yeah, I see why she went to bed." I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna go lay down now." So, yeah, but I've heard nothing but rave reviews, and what I played of it was actually really fun. But yeah, like you said, the backlog is just crazy. But the reason I mentioned HZD or Horizon Zero Dawn though is because their interface is like one of the coolest I had seen in a game. So I wasn't sure if like what you thought of it being, or let me rephrase that. Based on what you described as your job function, I wasn't sure if like that's what you meant. And
no,
what
I
you thought
haven't put
of
insights
that.
on it. I'm just you like. I'm gonna like go put it in my PlayStation right now, probably, and get back into it.
No, you're good. I just like I said because I know sometimes, like you said, you get to play other games to interact with them to see things. I wasn't sure if you had seen that one because I feel like the way they did that one. Same with like Far Cry Primal. Like I feel like certain games, just their interfaces make it easier as far as navigating. But I know like if from what you were describing, like as far as like the UI and everything, that's the stuff that goes on top of what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'm kind of catching up here, so I just want to make sure I'm following along. That's kind of cool.
That's good.
All right, it's just interesting because, like I said, seeing Jeffrey Card is, I can't remember what his job title is, but like he's one of the head guys. So when they bring on like their animators and things like that, like I'm one of the first people that's like, so as an animator, how do you feel about the shadowing in this area? And they're like, oh, good question. I'm like, I like those questions because I'm sure as their job, like that's the stuff they're trying to avoid is like those weird shadows. I know Dragon Age Inquisition got some flack because when you create your character, they look a certain way, and then you get them in the world, and you're like, okay, the lighting was not good.
The lighting is very different.
Yeah. The lighting is not good in there. So it was like when they introduced the whole, oh my gosh, what's the Black Emporium?
What is it?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
When they introduced the Black Emporium, I know everybody that I know that played Dragon Age was like, thank God, like. They're like, why can't we just leave the fade and go straight there? Like,
I saw a tweet. You probably saw it today too, maybe. But someone was like, "Yo, Cass, I'm real sorry about the breach and everything, but I gotta go to the Black Emporium and fix these eyebrows."
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I'm a weirdo.
Maybe that, yeah.
Okay, so I gotta ask weird questions. Okay, as far as things that you do when you play games. So, like, for instance, I have an unrealistic fear of video game water. Like, I've swam in the oceans. I'm not scared of sharks, things like that. But for whatever reason, I get into video game water. My palms get sweaty. I get anxious. I have to get my character out of said water. I don't even care. I admit it now. Like, my wife will do the whole Jaws sound while I'm in the water just to screw me. I'm like, it's not helping. Just stop. But it's like... is there certain things like that as a gamer that you would say like that's something that most people probably wouldn't know? Like maybe it's something you don't want to share, but at the same time, like inquiring minds want to know.
You nailed it with the water. Video game water freaks me out too. Like even playing like an old game like Banjo-Kazooie and like there's a shark in the water for like one of the early island levels, like my anxiety just like spikes. Or same like if I hear like the like running out of air music for Sonic, like that'll just get my anxiety immediately. But like that's a big one. I don't know if you played the game Outer Wilds or like heard about it.
Yes.
It's like I'm trying to think of it's the space one that's like not made by Obsidian. But there's some areas in that game that like freaks me out way more than I thought. Like some foggy areas that just like absolutely got under my skin. I'm trying to think if there's anything else kind of like weird video games that will make me instant nope. Oh, I really like playing horror video games, even though I'm a huge baby. But if any sort of video game tries to like do a horror thing, but also fourth wall me, where they'll be like the game will like intentionally glitch or something like that. Like that's very scary to me. Any sort of like digital glitching that's kind of creepy, which I don't know why, but that freaks me the hell out.
Okay. There's a game on the 360. It was called was it Condemned? Oh man, what was the name of the game? Whatever the game was, that was the first game that introduced me to purposeful in-game glitches, like something flash across the screen or the screen would shake. Like, I'm not gonna lie, my dad's not scared. My dad's 6'3", like 280 pounds. Like, he's not a timid man. But he watched us play this game when I was a teenager, and he literally noped and left the room. Like, I have never seen
like,
him.
No, I'm out.
Yeah. I've never seen him do that with anything. He's like, he's like, why is it flashing across the screen? How are you supposed to know what's going on? Like, the questions he was asking was like, he was legit.
It was hidden though. Like, it was hidden.
He was legit, like, worried for our lives or something. Like, it was so funny. But this is the same man that once left us to the what would I say? All right, we went camping. And we took paintball guns, and I guess we weren't supposed to have them in the state park. So he sees the park ranger coming, and he left us and went back to camp. So the park ranger shows up and was like, "Hey kids, y'all aren't supposed to have those out here where your parents at." And we looking around like, "Dad's right. right. Well, I swear he was out here. So he takes us in his Jeep. He drives us back to our campsite. My dad's literally sitting there drinking some coffee, acting like he had been there the whole time. I'm like,
Oh my
dear Lord,
god.
how you gonna do that? But at the same time, you worried I'm gonna die in a video game. Like, you don't make no sense. No sense whatsoever. So you said your family is all your family in Canada?
Like my immediate
Most-ish,
family
right?
is. So, my brother is back in Winnipeg, and my nephew too. Both my parents passed away, unfortunately.
Oh,
So technically,
sorry to
they're
hear
in
that.
Winnipeg. I got an uncle in Winnipeg. My whole dad's side of the family is there. On my mom's side, I have the one uncle I mentioned, and then I have one uncle that's back in Barbados now.
Okay.
So most of them just in Canada, and then like Barbados, where we're from. But yeah.
Have you been
I
back?
guess I'm in Edmonton. I forgot that I'm in Edmonton.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier. Now, have you been back to Barbados?
My family went when I was a baby, and then apparently was over it by the time I was older. So I haven't gone as like an adult, but I really want to. And post COVID, we'll see. But I don't know. It'd be nice to like.
Same thing you did.
My mom used to tell me like so many stories about like Barbados. Since I remember one time I was like at the grocery store, and I really wanted mango, and so I called my mom and I was like, "Hey, like, if I want, like, how do I know if a mango's ripe?" And she's like, "It should be like kind of like reddish, like yellow. If that's what you're going for." I was like, "I don't know, mom. Like, all of these kind of like green and like red." And she's like, "Katrina, like, I don't know. Like, I'm remembering picking these off trees when I was a kid. Like, I can't give you the perfect answer."
Right.
But I don't know. I think it would just be nice to go down there. Also, just go somewhere warm. Like, it's so snowy here in Edmonton right now. Like, I'm craving some sun. Yeah.
I'm sure. I only asked that because my wife was the same way. Her mom comes from the Thailand area, so when she was a kid, they went there a couple times. But she hasn't been back as an adult either. And I'm starting to learn more and more people are like that. Like their parents got to the point where they didn't want to make the trip anymore, so they just stopped. And then that means the
Totally,
kids
yeah.
didn't go. So it's interesting to see that's like a
It's
widespread.
like a common pattern. Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, well, it's 11:20 here, so I'm going to.
Oh, dang, it's late. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're good. I don't normally fall asleep till about midnight and get up still at 6. I sleep weird hours, but that's neither here nor there. But I knew that with the time difference, this just meant that you would be able to be comfortable and stuff at home, and it worked either way. So I really appreciate you stopping in. Thanks for putting up with us and answering all of our questions. And
No, it was great. Thank you so much for like reaching out. Like, especially just like I don't know. I feel like as like Black creators, we gotta like uplift each other, So I was like happy to do this, and you killed it for like an interview. By the way, like good job.
Well, thank you, thank you.
This is very chill. Anytime, let me know. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
No worries. Hey, and since you give me that little bit of plug, I may use you as a reference. I'm not gonna lie. If I approach someone else and be like, hey, if you want any insight into it, here's a link to the video. You can also talk to Kat. Make sure it's copacetic. But
it's
no,
all
I really
legit.
do.
Yeah, there's no voice modulation for someone that sounds like me. How you would get my voice, I don't know. But yeah, absolutely. You can use this as a reference.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for being here. I hope you have a great rest of your evening. And I will definitely, keep in touch. And oh my gosh. Okay, before I let you go, Jack says yes because I can sell electricity to the Amish. Thank you, Jack.
I see.
Thank
This
you.
is right in your wheelhouse, man. You're good at this. Okay.
That's funny. But no, I look forward to seeing what comes out of Bioware and what your part in is and all that. And, hopefully in the future when you can talk about this stuff and it has come out, I'd love to have you back to, discuss, your part in it if you'd be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really hope y'all like what we put out there. Yeah. Sounds good.
From everything that's been teased, I'm sure there's always going to be some, but I'm sure the overall every year around this time, N7 Day and DA4 Day or D4 Day come out. So it's like or Dragon Age Day, but it's like December 4th and November 7th. So it's like it's crazy to see that whole community comes back together. So I'm sure whatever comes out is gonna be fine because the base is still there. Everyone's still rooting. Like I'm sure it'll be fine. And if it's not, we'll
That's
blame
good to hear.
COVID. So it's fine. It's fine.
True. Oh man, yeah. I really think, I don't know. I think y'all will love the story. But yes, I'm very excited. And yeah, when I can talk about it fully and nerd out about it, definitely we can chat again.
Sweet. Okay. Well, I look forward to that, and have a good rest of your evening. And chat says goodbye as well, and we'll see what you're up to later.
Yeah, it was good talking to you. Okay,
You too.
see ya. Bye.
Good night. Sweet. Well, guys, thank you guys for hanging out. That was the first in our interview series that will be posted shortly to CNN, where we get in deep diving and get to know all the tidbits. I'm just kidding, y'all, but for real, thanks for stopping in. Thanks for hanging out. I can't wait to do more of these in the future. I'm seeing a lot more of representation out there that I feel could be put out there a little bit more. It's good for people to see that there's people that look like them in roles that they don't feel that they would ever be able to do or be qualified for. So that's part of why I did this. I wanted to encourage anyone that ever sees the video to know that there's someone that might have gone through things similar to them and look where they're at. So thanks again for everyone hanging out. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. I'm not going to be rating anyone tonight because I'm tired and I'm going to bed. So I will catch y'all on the flip side. Have a good rest of your evening. And as always, stay up, stay safe, and stay you, because no one else can do you like you do you. Night, y'all.